Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Dawnversations. Today's guest is Krista Lockwood, and she is here to talk to us about decluttering and getting rid of all the stuff. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people that keep a lot of things, and with the holidays, you just acquire more and more of it. So anyway, she's here to talk about that, and I hope you guys love the episode. If you'd like to reach out to me, I'm on all the socials. Okay, guys, here we go.
Three, two, one, yeah!
Hi, Krista.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good.
So, Krista is here to talk about decluttering, which so many people I know could use your tips and advice. So, how did you even get in that business?
Oh, geez. So I'll give you the shortest version possible, but it was by accident. So I know a lot of people, they declutter on purpose, and it's become pretty well known that it's a thing you can do to reduce overwhelm in your home and your life. But back in 2013, my husband and I decided to move from Alaska, which is where we were born and raised, with our three kids to Florida. And we were young parents. We were really broke. And so we decided to only bring one suitcase each with us as we moved to Florida. It was just, it, it made more sense financially to start over than it did to pay to ship all of our stuff from Alaska to Florida because it's so far. And so we got to Florida. We rented a house that was fully furnished and just had we had our suitcase of clothes, our suitcase of toys, and we got things like towels and bedding and dishes. But it changed everything for me as a mom of three. I had lived a pretty traditional motherhood where I was like, we're just always going to have messes. I'm always going to be behind on laundry. The dishes are never going to end. Like, I'm never going to get caught up. It's
Right.
going to be a never ending battle. But when we got to Florida, that changed. And like I said, I didn't know that people did this on purpose. I don't think the decluttering was even in my vocabulary at that point, but
How old were your kids?
they were 2, 4, and 7.
Oh my gosh. Were they devastated that you were leaving some of their toys behind, or did they not even know?
Not really, because we kept this suitcase of toys that, we chose to keep together. And so there was always conversations about like, we're going to keep these toys. We're going to a new house. We're going to live by the beach. It's totally different. It's going to be really exciting. And so we talked about all of the positives that were going to happen. And then we, brought the things that they could keep with them. And I remember we got rid of all of the stuffed animals. We went to Build-A-Bear and got them like a stuffed animal from Build-A-Bear so that they had that. And so we did, I think, our best. We were really naive, I think, too, as far as like I said, like not knowing it was a thing that people did, and just kind of guiding our kids through the process and doing what we needed to do in order to get to Florida and making it, like including them as much as we possibly could. So I
Wow.
mean, now those kids are 11, 13, and 16, and they seem okay. Like, they seem fine. Um,
That's
uh,
crazy though, but I think the initial thing that probably sparked it was that you were moving. I mean, there's so many people that don't move, and so they don't have that sense of urgency or need to hurry up and get rid of everything. They're just like, "Oh, someday." Just
yeah.
put it off, put it off. So you were kind of forced to do it, but it ended up being a good thing.
Yeah, it was a great thing, and so, yeah, we did that, and then in 2017 had another baby, and that was when I realized, like, what we had actually done and what had changed for us, because I was a part of a due date group on Facebook, which is just a group of women who are due at the same time
Mhm.
together, and they were all sharing. So we started this thing called house tours, where we would go live inside of the group and show each other our houses, and the intention was to, like, show each other, like, "Hey, we all have piles of laundry. We all have toys that are never gonna be cleaned
Right.
up or organized." Yeah. And, um, it got to be my turn, and they were like, "Hold on a second, like, how are you doing this?" And it was, see in hindsight, oh, like, this used to be my normal too, right? Like I used to spend my nights and weekends just trying to get caught up. I used to go to bed at the end of the day exhausted, yet feeling like I got nothing done.
Right.
And yeah, I was able to see it and see inside of their homes just in a, a non-judgmental way of just like, hey, I think I have a secret. I think I have something that can help you. Do you want me to show you how to do it? And the goal was to just show them how to have less stuff. So my whole thing is like I teach you how to declutter without becoming a full-blown minimalist, because especially if you have kids, that's just not possible. I don't think it's
Right.
realistic. Yeah. And I was like, "Do you
Well,
want me to show you how to get rid of it?"
how do you deal with I don't know if you do Christmas, but or birthdays where people are going to bring more things into your home via gifts. So how do you deal with that? Do you get rid of stuff, like if you get two gifts, then you get rid of two things?
Um, I mean, yes. Yes and no. So my belief and what I teach moms is that there's basically a revolving door of stuff in your home. Like things are always going to be coming in, which means that things always need to be going out. And there are certain times of year where that door is like spinning faster, right? Like we are around holiday time right now, either pre or post holiday time is a
Mhm.
really great time to be like taking stock of like, okay, these are the toys that we've had for a long time and nobody's playing with them. And those are the conversations that are happening in our house now as we're recording this is like holidays are coming up. We're going to start going through toys, donating things, getting rid of things. The seasons are changing. We're going to start getting rid of clothes that either don't fit us anymore or are worn out and getting rid of these things because we're about to have more stuff coming in. And in the beginning, when you are, starting off your decluttering journey, it's going to be a lot more stuff leaving your house than is coming in because you've probably never really intentionally let things go. You've just been accumulating, which is how I had been. It was like I had 3 kids. I'd been accumulating things for multiple kids for many, many years, not even knowing that, like I said, decluttering was a thing. I had no
Yeah.
concept of it. So in the beginning, you're letting go of a lot more stuff, but you are still going to have things coming in. And eventually you just get to a pace where you're like, I feel like we need to start getting rid of stuff. Like it's starting to get a little bit cramped. Everybody's complaining about messes again. Like I feel like I'm nagging everybody again. I feel like we've got too much stuff. Like let's simplify it. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Have they, your older kids, have you noticed that they've picked up on those same things? Like, I don't need that, or they don't hold on to things like
Yeah.
typical kids do?
Um, I think there's still it depends. So we have 5 kids total.
Oh my
And
lord.
yes, I have one daughter, she's 13 and she's kind of a hobby collector. She's really creative. She's very artistic and she has, her space in her room. And she's just now to the point, because I've been doing this with her for years, where she'll do it on her own now, where she'll be like, my room is really overwhelming. Like, I don't feel like I can do anything creative in here. I'm like avoiding my room. I feel like I need to get rid of stuff. And she'll do it on her own. And she has a pretty good sense now of like what she wants to keep and what she doesn't want to keep. And then I have my son who is a little bit younger than her. He's 11. He likes to keep things and he likes to collect shoes. So he is a thrift store shoe finder and he has probably like 20 pair of shoes just because he likes to go like find Jordans that he can pay $12 for and he's like, "Woohoo, like I found a
Right.
great deal." And I want to encourage that in him, but he doesn't want to let things go and he has 2 younger sisters and I don't know how him yet, but he wants to like pass down his shoe collection to the 3 and 5-year-olds who won't even fit into them for like 6 more years. And they're girls. And so I don't even think they're gonna have the same style as
Yeah.
him, right? And I think it's because he just naturally is more of a collector. Like he just doesn't like to let things go. So having conversations with him just looks like, hey, you only have this much space in your room and on your shelves. You're gonna have to make some decisions on like what shoes you're gonna keep or not keep. And I've already taken some shoes to put in their closet, but they also don't have any room in their closet. So we just can't keep everything. You're going to have to pick the favorites. And he's old enough now to where we can have those conversations. It's just a little bit slower than it is for like my older 2 kids who get rid of things a lot easier than he does.
Yeah. Well, and the older they get, the few things are so much more costly, like the regular price Jordans or, any purses or clothes that are, I mean, they're expensive for just one thing. So it's
Yeah,
like the little things when they're little and teeny and you're just buying all these little Polly Pockets and teeny tiny toys. And that's where it gets overwhelming because it's cheap stuff, but it adds up to piles and piles.
totally. Yes. And I I actually just recorded a podcast on this for my daughter because my daughter is 5 and she is a lot like my son and she doesn't want to get rid of anything. And I think the biggest tip for that is being really mindful of what you actually bring into your house. Like how much are you actually buying for them? Clothing, because even for her, like clothing, she just is like, I don't want to get rid of it yet, even though it doesn't fit her. It's like two sizes too small.
Is this your Gemini?
Yes. Yes. That is her.
Oh God, love the Geminis. It's a thing. I don't know why. And also, anything that's sentimental, I
Yeah.
cannot get rid of it's like, oh, somebody wrote on this. I need to keep it. And it goes into an envelope or a box, and then I've got boxes of boxes just filled with random that I will probably never go looking for, but I just can't bring myself to throw it away.
hmm Yes, that is her. And it's like even trash, even like a balloon for her birthday was a long time ago. And there's a balloon left from it. And she's just like, it's the most special thing in the world to her.
Yep.
And everything is. And so I think that's another reason I like to teach people how to declutter without becoming like a full-blown minimalist is because that doesn't work for everybody and that's okay. Like she really feels strongly about her stuff and she really wants to keep it and I don't want to force her or anybody to be like, well, it's just a balloon, right? Because
Right.
for her, it's from her birthday and it's her favorite color and she's played a lot of things with it and she's, it means something to her. And then I can still kind of coach her through sounds weird because it's my daughter, but like coach her and mentor her through other kinds of things. Like, well, this cardboard box, we've had it for about a week and nobody's really done anything with it. And so this does need to be trash. And so just using my discernment as an adult, right?
Hmm.
To kind of walk her through the things that are okay, that we do have space for that do make sense to keep versus the things that are like, okay, if we do keep everything, like we're going to end up with a problem. uh,
Right. So what do you do for somebody that sees everything as special? I mean,
uh,
not hoarder, not like where they've got garbage. I'm talking like nice things and orderly things, but too much of things. What do you do?
so for the most part, my recommendation is to start with like the simple everyday things like under your kitchen sink or your spice cabinet or your laundry room cabinet because if you have items that are sentimental, whether it's like a photo or a piece of art or something that somebody gave you that you really enjoy, the chances are that that isn't the thing that's overwhelming you on a daily basis. The thing that's overwhelming you on a daily basis are the excessive amount of dishes, right? The excessive amount of laundry, the excessive amount of toys that you can't ever get organized or craft supplies that you don't actually use. Like those are the things that are overwhelming to you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and if you can start simple, start with the things that you're like, well, under the sink, I've got a lot of duplicate cleaners, I've got expired stuff, there's a lot of trash somehow, it always accumulates.
Yes.
Clearing that space first and learning how to make those decisions and kind of giving yourself evidence that nothing bad happened, it actually felt really good, it wasn't as hard as I thought, and then doing that with the next layer of stuff that might feel a little bit more challenging. Maybe you get through under the sink and you go through the Tupperware cabinet and you get rid of all of the lids that who knows what happened to the other end of it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then you can maybe go into, some, dishes that maybe you have like a couple set of dishes and you're like, well, ultimately, we never use these. Ultimately, I really don't want these. I can get rid of these and it's kind of like scaffolding. It happens in layers. It is a skill and you build on it
Mhm.
and you get better and better as you go.
So I help care for some elderly people. And I'm one of the ladies that go see. She wants me to help her start organizing her kitchen and getting rid of things. And she used to be the entertainer. She was the hostess where everybody came over, and now everybody's families have grown and stuff. And now she's like, I want you to help me get rid of some things. And I know it's going to be a huge task because she is in the mentality of, what if people come over here still, but they need these platters and plates and all these things, so that you're keeping things that you're only using like once a year and they're taking up space. Like, how do you address that? Because I don't know what I'm going to do when the time comes. I don't want to get rid of her things if she feels like she needs them.
Yeah. So for I have some friends and I've worked with some moms who that is a really big deal to them, right? They love to host, they love to entertain, and there's a few different ways to approach this. So I'll share just a few different, and you can kind of
Okay.
keep like put them in your pocket and feel out
Yeah.
the conversation with her.
Yeah.
But for moms, a lot of times especially if they become mothers like in their 30s, they've had a decade or more of like accumulating things, being a certain kind of entertainer, a certain kind of host. And then
Hmm.
what ends up happening is when you have kids, your priorities just shift, right? Your kitchen becomes full of baby gadgets and high chairs. And so
Right.
sometimes it's just a matter of accepting that season of your life just is not the priority right now. And so maybe that means packing that stuff up and putting it in a basement or a garage until you
Okay.
do have time for that again, or giving it to a family member or a friend who does have the time and the space and the energy to do that. Or maybe it's a matter of clearing out some things in their kitchen that aren't essential to them, and they would rather have, maybe they want, less, get rid of the immersion blender and get rid of like the Instapot or whatever and make space for these holiday type things because that's what they want to keep. It's just a matter of shifting your priorities and making your stuff match your priorities, but also the season of life that you're in right now. And that can be
Sure.
really difficult. It's often, honestly, a grieving process.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
I could totally see that. But
yeah.
like you said, I mean, it's just you need it to not overwhelm you on the day to day. Like, if what good is it going to do for you to have all these wonderful things for entertaining if they're taking up all your counter space or your cupboards? And so every day that you're going to try and find something normal, you can't find it because it's behind all of this stuff that you never use except once a year.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really about just reconfiguring your priorities and then making your stuff match that. So maybe, you have a garage or a basement that has storage of like, boxes of your yearbooks and paper, every paper you ever had from childhood. And that's in your basement right now. And you're like, well, I really don't need all of that. Maybe I can just pull out the best of those childhood memories, clear that space out, and keep the holiday entertainment where here instead.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, yeah, there's not really a one size fits all approach to that, but you can kind of take that concept of like, let's figure out what's really important to you and let's make space for that, which means that you're
Yeah.
going to have to make some decisions. And that's where the process comes in.
Yeah, yeah, and the overwhelm,
Yeah.
because I think baby steps is the definite message that I'm getting from you. Just
Yeah.
start with your spice rack, start with the under the sink, do the little things because you do feel a weight lifted
Mhm.
when you deal with little things like that, and hey, I did that. I got rid of some stuff today. I didn't need it. It didn't kill me, and it feels good and it looks better.
Yeah. And I think people would actually be really surprised too by how much space they can get if they just go through and kind of edit those things. Like my so we have 7 people in our house and we have a little front entryway closet and we're moving into winter and I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Like we have no room for anything." It's like
Yep.
making me go bananas. And I went through it the other day and I was able to like pull out, like 5 pair of shoes that nobody fits into anymore. I was able to pull out hats and gloves like from last year that nobody fits into. And I was able to clear a bunch of space and now everything fits again. And I didn't have to get rid of anything that actually mattered because I'm like, how are we going to fit snowsuits for everybody in here? Like, there's no room.
Right. Well, and it
And
does seem like it happens overnight because you
yeah.
just walk past it every single day, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Ah, why is there so much stuff in here?" You just notice it all of a sudden or something.
Yes. Yeah. And so if you can just go through and really just get rid of those things that like really simple decisions. It doesn't fit anymore. I never use it. It's worn out. Um, it's trash. You know, a lot of what's in our houses are actually trash and we don't realize it. And clearing that stuff out, and then you do have a space for that stuff. And it feels easier to be like, okay, I don't have to get rid of, I don't have to get rid of my entertainment platters. I have
Right.
room now, or at least it feels like we have more room. So it's less urgent, right?
Yeah. That totally makes sense. Get rid of the stuff that you're not using at all so that you can make room for the stuff that you're not ready to get rid of.
Yeah.
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 Do you do a garage sale? Do you give your stuff to relatives or do you just do like Goodwill?
I do. So for me, at the stage of decluttering that I'm at now, I either like I have young children, and so there's a consignment shop down the road from us that I will use,
Mhm.
which is really easy. I can just drop it off there and they sell it for me. But in the past, like when we left Alaska, I did buy nothing groups weren't a thing back then, but there was like a
Right.
neighborhood garage sale page that I put stuff up on. And then I held garage sales like 3 weekends in a row, and then the rest was donated or trashed. And this is a big conversation. I have lots of podcast episodes that I've done on this to like explain how and why it happened that way. But I learned from my experience and then working with like thousands of moms over the last several years that about like 10 to 15% of people's stuff will ever be sold. And that's true. That's pretty universally true across like moms, everyday moms. But I've also worked with a couple like estate sellers, and they say the same thing. Like, if you can get 10% of your stuff to sell at an estate sale, like we're happy. And so
Wow.
the truth is that we all basically have the same kinds of stuff, the same kinds of clutter. There's not a lot of monetary value. It is wild how that happens.
Yeah.
But then I was able to donate the rest, and it was kind of shocking because I was in like a small town in Alaska. The only place I could take it to was a Salvation Army,
Mhm.
and they actually stopped taking donations from me because they were like, "We cannot take any more of your stuff." And so I was in this position where nobody was buying it at the garage sale. Nobody was buying it from like the online postings that I always make. The donation center like turned me away. They're like, "We don't want any more stuff." And it was a really unique experience in seeing like how much stuff we actually had that was really pointless, and there really was no value in it.
Mm.
And so a lot of it had to be trashed, which was devastating,
Yeah.
so devastating. But then what I've seen from moms in their homes as well is that they all eventually get to that point as well. It's like, well, nobody wants these like broken colored pencils. And
Right.
there are programs and stuff that you could do, like send in your crayons and send in your pencils and stuff, but it's just we consume so much, and the overconsumption is so rampant that we just are so used to having so much stuff around us, and we view it as more necessary than it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and especially when you have Amazon where you can get anything you want in a day,
Right.
it's just like, oh, you see that. Oh, that would be great. I need that. I need that. And, it's just a revolving door of more and more and more and more. And you've already got so much already. So,
Yeah.
and people don't collect things like they used to, like my sister had a huge precious moments collection, the little ceramic statues, and people used to have big hutches where they would display all their fancy plates and teacups and all that stuff. A lot of people just don't do that anymore. People like to have smaller things and not as bulky of furniture, and it's just a
Mhm.
different time. So I don't know. It's interesting. We're at a really turning point. I feel like where you've got either your minimalists or your hoarders.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
Yeah. And I've actually had conversations with my grandma about this because she was in the fashion industry, in like the 50s and 60s. And so the she's watched the fashion industry
Yeah.
change into what it is now. And it's really interesting to to hear from her how it's changed because I think so. This is kind of like, I'll try to explain it the best way that I can in the shortest amount of time
No,
possible.
go ahead.
But we live in a consumer society, and the conversations that I've had with my grandma are that, like, it used to be normal for kids to only have 5 to 7 outfits, and now if a kid has 5 to 7 outfits, it's almost like, what's wrong with you? Like, why do
Yeah,
you only have
poverty.
yeah, why do you only have 5 to 7 outfits for your kids? And so we are in a time where we are dealing with the effects of overconsumption, and we feel a lot of guilt for it because it wrecks our planet. It's terrible on resources, and it's terrible for workers who are creating these mass produced products. And so as consumers, we are trying to correct that by donating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want things to go to the landfill. But the truth is that that's, whether it's us who puts it there or not, that's where it's going
Right.
to end up.
Yep.
And even there's so many studies and like conversations that are starting to happen around like Goodwills or thrift stores essentially being the middleman to the landfill. And so we donate our things and we feel good about it on an individual level. But the reality is that they have dumpsters out back that carry it away and take it to the landfill for us. And so the message that I always try to send people is that we are where we are. Like, it just is what it is. And we are so overwhelmed by it, and it affects our mental, emotional clarity. It affects our physical wellness. It affects our relational wellness so much that it is okay to give yourself relief in whatever way that you have to do it for now in the short term, and know that down the road, you will be able to be a much better consumer. You will be able to redistribute your stuff in a much more mindful way, but you really can't be the one to solve the problem when you are struggling with it, which is what I see happening for moms all the time, is that they are feeling chronically anxious, overwhelmed, burdened, depressed, like snapping at their children, unable to connect with their children or themselves or their spouses because their homes are so overwhelming for them. And so I like to just give people permission of, like, if you just need to donate it wherever you need to donate it, do that and don't feel bad about it, right? If you have to trash some things that maybe someday somebody could use somewhere, don't feel bad about it. Just give yourself a little bit of relief. And it's kind of like a scale. Once you pull back that first layer, you're still left with plenty of stuff to donate. You're still left with plenty of resources to share with people and to give to people. But we're just in such an uncomfortable time right now where I feel like, carrying the brunt of this burden. And it's not something that we have to take responsibility for super personally.
Wow, I love that. I mean, I was just nodding the whole time. It's so true, but once you do it, then if you quit buying all the time, then you are not part of the problem anymore.
Yeah.
You get rid of everything that you no longer need, however uncomfortable that might be, and then just try and stop purchasing so much, and then you're not going to be part of that equation any longer.
Yes. And that is exactly what happened for me. It's like, I was devastated. Like, it's burned into my mind of like how much stuff I had to get rid of when we left Alaska. And it felt awful.
Mhm.
And it was embarrassing, right? It was like embarrassing. It took me like 2.5 years to even tell my community of moms who I helped declutter what I had done as far as like trashing things.
Yeah.
And I felt so much guilt and so much shame about it. But then I was like, but you know what? Like, I did that when I was 24 years old, and I will spend, because I plan on living to be like 100 years old. I'll, I will spend the next 75 years of my life being a mindful consumer. I'm not going to do it perfectly because I don't think anybody in a consumer society can do it perfectly. It's just the way
Right.
the system is designed. But I will be better, and I will consume less, and I will tell everybody about this. Will encourage them and support them and make them not feel bad about it, because it's where we are. It's just what we have to do. It's
That's
okay.
such a good message. I love it so much. Like the way that you put everything. So tell people where they can find your podcast, because I definitely want to listen to that too. So where are you?
Oh, thank you. It is motherhoodsimplified.com, and the podcast is right there. It's Motherhood Simplified on any podcast platform, wherever you listen. It's just Motherhood Simplified. Very simple.
Yeah. Do you do one episode a week? I mean, how do you have time with 5 kids?
Oh, great question. Simplifying everything is how I do it. But yes, I've done one episode a week for about the last 3 years. And so there's tons of episodes for you to listen to. There is one episode, it's called An Honest Conversation About Goodwill, that is a little bit more in depth about like overconsumption and what we can actually do about it. If you guys are interested in that, since that's where our conversation went. But yeah,
I'll link that one for sure. I'll link that in the show notes so people can go right to it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, lots of episodes there to help you get started, just tips and tricks and encouragement, validation, all of that.
thank you so much. This was so interesting. And I did learn a lot. It's going to help me. Like you said, I have it in my pocket now because I also hold on to stuff. So I feel like I'm going to get myself into a situation where she's like, what should I do with this? And I'll be like, I'll take it to my house.
Yes.
And then my husband, who is also a Virgo like you, will be like, what are you doing?
Right.
Get this out of the house. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Krista. I'll be in touch with you for sure and let you know when this is going to air, and I'll put all your information in the show notes.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.